Perhaps you have spent years believing you were waiting on God, but there is another possibility. The moment was never simply waiting to arrive. Something in you was still being built to meet it. Chosen one, look at what has changed since this journey began. You do not trust the same people anymore. You notice misalignment faster. Things you once tolerated for months can now disturb your peace in a single conversation. Somewhere along the way, you stopped asking only how to make things happen and started asking whether they were even yours to carry. That change matters. The journey did not only test your patience, it trained your perception. It showed you what drains you, what distracts you, and what keeps asking for access after proving it cannot carry your future. You may still call those years delay, but delay is not the only explanation available to you. Before this message is over, I want to show you 3 things. First, why some years you called lost may have been building capacities you could not have developed another way. Second, why people often become most uncertain before they have to live as the person their journey created. And third, why recognizing the right moment is not always the same as having enough clarity to respond. Think about the decisions that exhaust you now. Very often, they are not the decisions you know nothing about. They are the ones where some part of you already knows, but another part keeps reopening the case. You decide, then doubt. You feel peace, then search for one more sign. You move, then question whether you should have moved at all. That is not always lack of faith. Sometimes it is an old protection strategy, continuing after the danger that created it is gone. You learn to expect disappointment because disappointment came often. You learn to scan for hidden costs because good things once arrived with one. Eventually, caution stopped feeling like a response. It started feeling like your identity. But you are not the same person who entered this season. You recover faster. You see manipulation sooner. You can feel when peace becomes pressure. You know the difference between being needed and being valued more clearly now. Those are not small changes. They are signs that something in you has been forming. So, the question is no longer only, when will God finally move? The deeper question is, what if this is the moment when you have to move differently? What if the next door requires the discernment that closed doors taught you? What if the next relationship requires boundaries that loneliness forced you to build? Do not rush past that. There is a difference between surviving a season and receiving what the season taught you. One leaves you tired, the other leaves you equipped. And you may no longer be asked to prove how much you can endure. You may be standing at a different kind of threshold now, not one that asks you to suffer more, one that asks you to recognize what has already changed. If the waiting was not only waiting, then we need to ask what it was building in you the entire time. If that question feels personal, say this to yourself: I am willing to see what this season formed in me. Keep the question open, because first, we need to examine the part of your journey you are most tempted to call wasted. There is a part of your story you still judge too quickly. It may be the job that ended, the relationship that collapsed, or the opportunity that disappeared. You look back and call it wasted time. But what if that conclusion is incomplete? Chosen one, remember how it felt when one of those doors closed. You probably did not feel formed. You felt rejected. You felt confused. Maybe you sat in your car after a conversation and replayed every sentence. The pain was real. But pain and meaning are not the same thing. You may have told yourself that if you had been wiser or stronger, you would have avoided that season. That explanation sounds responsible. It can also become cruel, because it turns every detour into evidence against you. But a non-linear road is not automatically a wrong road. Sometimes a detour exposes what a straight path would have allowed you to ignore. It shows you who disappears when you stop performing. It shows you how quickly you abandon your own knowing when approval is offered as a reward. This is what I call the designed detour. Not because every painful event was sent by God. Not because betrayal becomes good when you attach a spiritual label to it. The point is simpler. What you did not choose can still become material for formation, if you allow truth to come out of it instead of only shame. Look at what rejection may have taught you. It may have sharpened discernment. Loneliness may have forced you to hear your own voice without a crowd. Disappointment may have broken your attachment to promises that sounded beautiful but never became consistent action. That does not erase what happened. It changes what owns you now. A wound can remain part of your story without remaining the author of your decisions. Think about Joseph. His story contains betrayal, waiting, responsibility, and change before elevation. The point is that sacred stories often refuse the idea that preparation always looks like progress while it is happening. And that matters for you now. Some abilities you rely on today were not built in comfortable rooms. You learned boundaries because someone crossed them. You learned patience because answers did not come quickly. You learned how to read character because charm once fooled you. You learned how to stand alone because agreement was not always available. So do not call every difficult year a blessing. That can become another way of denying pain. Call it what it was. Then ask a better question. What did this season make visible that I could not see before? What did it force me to develop that comfort never required? That question returns power to you. It moves you from, why did this happen, to, what can I carry forward now? And once you begin answering it, something surprising appears. The events that looked unrelated begin to form a pattern. Rejection connects to the boundary. Loneliness connects to self-trust. Delay connects to patience. The false opportunity connects to discernment. Suddenly, the journey looks less like scattered damage and more like capacities being assembled across time. But formation alone does not explain why this moment feels different. It tells you why you changed. It does not yet tell you why so many separate lessons seem to be meeting each other now. That is the next pattern we need to see. Once you see the pattern, your past begins to look different. The lessons stop sitting in separate rooms. They start moving toward each other. The boundary connects to rejection. Patience connects to delay. Self-trust connects to the season when nobody understood what you were becoming. Chosen one, this is the convergence point. It is the moment when experiences that once looked unrelated begin to function together. You are no longer carrying isolated lessons. You are carrying discernment that did not exist when the journey began. Think about who you were before those experiences happened. You may have said yes because you feared disappointing people. You may have stayed because leaving felt like failure. You may have rushed because silence made you nervous. They were patterns you had not learned to name. Now, notice what happens today. You hear the same kind of promise, but something inside you checks the pattern behind the words. You feel pressure, and instead of calling it excitement, you pause. You notice inconsistency sooner. You ask whether a door requires you to betray your peace before you call it an opportunity. That is not cynicism. That is discernment with memory. Your history is no longer only something that happened to you. It has become information you can use. This is why timing is not only about the clock. A moment can arrive before you have the capacity to recognize it. The same opportunity can look different to two versions of the same person. One version sees rescue. The other sees alignment. One asks, who will choose me? The other asks, what choice keeps me honest? Imagine a door opening now that would have terrified you 3 years ago. Picture a conversation, a responsibility, or a chance to say yes without abandoning yourself. The old version of you would have rushed. The present version asks better questions first. You check the cost, you check the pattern, you check your peace. You do not need 12 people to confirm what you can already examine with clarity. You can move slower and still move with greater precision. That is the future your formation was making possible. not a life without uncertainty, a life where uncertainty does not automatically take control, a life where you are less likely to enter the wrong door simply because you are desperate for movement. If this is landing for you, hold this sentence: what formed me will not be wasted. You do not need to romanticize the past to redeem what you learned from it. You only need to stop leaving your hard-earned wisdom behind when something new appears. And here is where the message turns. Seeing the pattern is powerful, but it creates a new problem. You can recognize what is right and still struggle to act on it. You can know a conversation needs to happen and postpone it. So what is happening there? Why can discernment become sharper while movement still feels difficult? Why can your spirit feel clear while your mind feels crowded, tired, or divided? That may be the overlooked gap between the person your journey formed and the action this moment requires. We are going there next, because if the journey brought your lessons together, then we have to understand what happens when the receiver still struggles to carry what you already know. You can know exactly what needs to change and still sit in the same place. That is one of the most frustrating parts of transformation. Chosen one. Understanding does not always become movement the moment it arrives. You can open the laptop and stare at the task for 20 minutes. You can read the same message 3 times before answering. You can decide what needs to happen, then ask 5 more people what they think. None of that automatically means you are lazy or spiritually weak. Sometimes the problem is simpler. Your mind is carrying too many unfinished signals at once. Fear is speaking. Responsibility is speaking. Memory is speaking. Other people are speaking. And while all of those voices compete for attention, the decision that once felt clear begins to feel heavy. This is why knowing, feeling, choosing, and doing are not the same event. You can know a boundary is necessary. You can feel why it matters. You can even choose it internally. But execution still asks your attention to organize itself around one action. That is where many people begin blaming themselves. They say they need more discipline. They say they need stronger faith. They assume hesitation is evidence that something is wrong with them. But hesitation can also come from overload, divided attention, and a nervous system trained to keep scanning for danger. Think about how often important decisions become harder when the stakes rise. Small choices feel easy. The meaningful ones create noise. Your mind starts collecting possibilities because it wants certainty before movement, and certainty is rarely available in the exact form fear demands. There is something else I want you to hold here. Over the past few decades, researchers have continued exploring how different regions of the brain communicate and coordinate during attention, creativity, and decision-making. Later, I will return to one specific line of that research because it raises a practical question that fits this journey closely. The question is simple. Does clarity depend only on what you believe, or can it also depend on the condition of the system processing what you already know? Do not answer too quickly. A person can hold a true belief and still be exhausted. A person can know the right direction and still struggle to organize the next step. Spiritual conviction and mental clarity can support each other, but they are not identical experiences. For now, notice your own pattern. When something matters deeply, does your mind become clearer or more crowded? Do you move toward the decision, or do you begin reopening possibilities that were already settled? That observation matters because the next part of this journey is not about receiving another message. It is about understanding why insight sometimes remains insight. And once you see that gap clearly, you may stop calling yourself weak for a problem that has a more specific address. Look at the pattern from another angle. You may spend an hour avoiding one important task, then complete 3 easier tasks without resistance. That difference tells you something. The issue may not be your ability to work. The issue may be what the important task represents. It may represent visibility or change. It may force a decision that closes another door. Sometimes the first step Is reducing interference enough to hear what was already clear? Keep that question open, because in the next part, we are going to name the space between recognition and response. And once you see it, several years of self-blame may finally start to loosen. There is a space between recognition and response. You can feel it when you know what matters, but your attention keeps slipping away from the action. Chosen one, that space deserves a name. I call it the receiver gap. It is the distance between what you can already see and what your daily mental state allows you to carry into action. The receiver is not your worth. It is not your faith. It is simply the condition from which you process, choose, and respond. This matters because many people treat every delay in action as a character problem. They say they are undisciplined. They call themselves inconsistent. They assume they need another burst of motivation. But motivation cannot organize a mind that is already crowded with unfinished signals. Notice the symptom. You sit down to do something important and suddenly feel tired. You open the document, then reach for your phone. You know the conversation needs to happen, but your mind starts rehearsing every possible outcome. The task has not changed. Your internal load has. The common explanation is that you need to try harder. But effort is only one part of the picture. If attention is fragmented, more effort can become more friction. You push harder, feel worse, then use the struggle as evidence that you are failing. The hidden mechanism is interference. Fear competes with intention. Memory competes with the present. Other people's expectations compete with your own discernment. The result is not always confusion about the truth. Sometimes it is difficulty holding the truth long enough to act on it. That is why the receiver gap can feel so strange. Spiritually, you may feel settled. Mentally, you may still feel noisy. You can know that a chapter is over and still spend another month negotiating with it in your head. This is where the reframe becomes useful. You may not need another answer. You may need fewer competing signals. You may not need more pressure. You may need a cleaner condition for attention. Try something simple right now. Notice your shoulders. Notice your jaw. Notice what happens in your chest when you think about one decision you have delayed. Do not solve it yet. Just observe where your body tightens when your mind begins reopening the case. That tension is information. It does not tell you what decision to make. It tells you that the decision is carrying more than facts. It may be carrying fear, history, responsibility, or an old need for permission. Now return agency to yourself. Choose one decision. Remove one source of noise around it. Set one boundary for when you will think about it. Then ask one clear question, instead of 10 vague ones. What do I know when fear is not speaking the loudest? That is not a miracle formula. It is a way to reduce interference. And sometimes reducing interference reveals that the answer was never absent. It was buried under repetition. This may be the midpoint of your entire journey. You may not be waiting for more revelation. You may be waiting for a state clear enough to live by what has already been revealed. If that is true, then one final question becomes unavoidable. Why can a person understand the lesson, recognize the pattern, pray sincerely, and still struggle to move? Earlier, I asked you to hold a question about the system processing what you already know. We are about to close that loop, because the next step is not another spiritual slogan. It is the missing piece between insight and execution, and it changes how you understand readiness itself. Earlier, I asked whether clarity depends only on what you believe, or also on the condition of the system processing what you already know. This is where that question comes back, because what you have learned so far is true. Your journey can form discernment, pain can expose patterns, waiting can strengthen patience. But none of those lessons automatically guarantee that your next decision will feel easy. Why can a person understand the lesson, recognize the pattern, pray sincerely, and still remain unable to move? Why does insight sometimes stay as insight instead of becoming action? The answer may not be another belief to collect. The missing piece is the condition from which the decision is being made. If your attention is fragmented, if your mind is overloaded, or if old fear keeps reopening settled questions, then even good discernment can struggle to become consistent action. That does not mean your spiritual life is broken. It does not mean God is withholding direction. It means human beings do not respond with spirit alone. We also process, compare, remember, focus, and choose through a living brain that can become tired and overloaded. This is the WHY. The journey may have changed what you are able to recognize, but recognition still needs enough clarity to become behavior. You can see the door and still hesitate at the handle. This is the what. You are not necessarily missing one more sign. You may need to support the condition in which signs, facts, memory, and discernment are being processed. That can include rest, boundaries, reduced noise, focused attention, and practical tools that support mental clarity. And this is the who. You are becoming someone who does not confuse exhaustion with guidance. You do not confuse mental noise with spiritual warning. You do not surrender your agency just because a decision feels difficult. Think about how different that is from the person who entered the waiting season. That version of you may have needed constant confirmation. That version may have mistaken intensity for truth. That version may have stayed too long because leaving felt like failure. But you have evidence now. You have patterns now. You have memory now. The journey did not only teach you what to avoid, it taught you how to notice what happens inside you before an old pattern takes control. So the core of this message can be said plainly. What felt like delay may have been formation. The journey built discernment, capacity, and clarity that can help you recognize this moment differently. But the final responsibility is still yours. You still have to protect your attention. You still have to choose what receives access to your mind. You still have to notice when overload is making every option look equally urgent. And this is where the deeper question becomes practical. If the receiver matters, what can support it? There is research that has examined how the two hemispheres of the brain contribute differently to perception and processing, including the work associated with Nobel Prize recipient Dr. Roger Sperry. That research does not prove every modern product built around brain coordination, but it opened an important scientific conversation about how the brain integrates information. That distinction matters. Science should not become decoration for a promise. The useful question is narrower. Can a practical tool support clarity without pretending to replace faith, wisdom, rest, or responsible decision-making? The clarity you have received is real, but clarity alone is not movement. The door is visible. The remaining question is how you support the mind that has to walk through it. That is where we go next. Earlier, I asked whether a practical tool could support clarity without pretending to replace faith, wisdom, rest, or responsible decision-making. This is where that question becomes specific. There is research connected to Dr. Roger Sperry, who received the Nobel Prize in 1981 for work involving specialized functions of the two brain hemispheres. That research did not prove a modern audio product, but it helped establish how much the brain depends on coordinated processing. According to the team behind the resource I am about to describe, they built their approach around that idea of coordination. They call the process neural sync technology, designed to support more integrated whole brain activation. Before I name it, listen to two experiences reported through the product team. A woman from California described years of feeling mentally foggy and emotionally disconnected, even while trying prayer, journaling, and other practices. She said that after using the audio consistently, something felt clearer in her daily life. A man from Texas described another struggle. He carried work, family, and decisions while feeling as if his mind was always partially occupied. According to his account, after using the sequence for a period of time, he felt sharper, and more able to focus on what was directly in front of him. Those are personal reports, not guarantees. Results can vary, but they return us to the same question. What happens when the receiver is supported instead of blamed? The resource is called the Genius Switch. According to the product team, it is an 8-minute targeted auditory sequence designed to be used with headphones while your eyes are closed. They position it as a neural sync technology tool intended to support hemisphere coordination and whole brain activation. It is not a substitute for prayer. It is not a substitute for sleep, medical care, wise counsel, or disciplined action. And it should not be treated as proof that every mental struggle has one neurological cause. What makes it relevant here is the frame. You have spent this journey learning that clarity matters. This tool is being offered as practical support for the receiver, not as the source of your calling. The Genius Switch is not for everyone. It is for the chosen one who is willing to stop treating every season of fog as a moral failure. It is for the person who can hold faith and practicality in the same hand. According to the offer described by the product team, the listed price was $49, while the page-specific offer was $39. The package also included 4 digital bonuses and a money-back guarantee. Those bonuses were described as a guided visualization, a smart grocery shopping guide, a classic manifestation book, and a 5 habits infographic. The exact offer can change, so read the official page carefully before deciding. The product team has also said the lower price may not remain available. Do not hear that as pressure. The better question is whether continuing in the same fragmented pattern is costing you more attention than you want to give away. If this resonates, use the official page linked in the description and pinned comment. Read the details for yourself. Check the terms. Check the guarantee. Make the decision from clarity, not urgency. One more thing matters. Similar sounding products can exist online. If you explore this, use the official page connected below and verify what you are getting before you purchase. Then, release the product from the center of this message. A tool does not replace God. A tool does not obey for you. It does not make the hard conversation happen. It does not set the boundary. It does not choose courage when the old pattern returns. What God is doing in you is not conditional on buying anything. Your worth is not for sale. Your calling is not locked behind a payment page. But practical support can still have a place if it helps you meet your responsibilities with more clarity. That is the bridge. Support the receiver, then return to the deeper work. Because the next obstacle is not information. It is what happens when the door becomes real enough that you can no longer hide inside preparation. The moment a door becomes real, something can happen. You expected relief. Instead, you feel tension. Chosen one, this is where many mistake fear for a final answer. You imagine the conversation becoming real. You imagine your work being seen. You imagine saying yes to something that would require a different version of you. Then, your mind begins searching for reasons to step back. The common explanation is simple. Maybe this is not meant for me. Maybe the discomfort is a warning. Maybe I should wait until I feel completely peaceful. But complete emotional comfort is not the standard by which every meaningful decision should be judged. I call this the threshold fear. It appears when the old identity realizes that movement will cost it something. Familiar pain has rules you already understand. New possibility asks you to live without those rules. A healthy door can still feel unfamiliar. A clear boundary can still make you guilty. A good opportunity can still make you want to hide. Discomfort does not automatically equal misalignment. Think about the person you had to become in order to survive the old season. That person learned caution. That person learned to scan. That person learned how to stay ready for disappointment before disappointment arrived. Those skills may have protected you once. But protection can become resistance when it keeps operating after the environment changes. The same instinct that saved you from one door can keep you standing outside another. So how do you know the difference? You do not ask whether fear is present, you ask what fear is saying. Is it pointing to a real pattern you can verify, or is it repeating an old story because the future has no familiar shape yet? That question returns you to discernment. Facts still matter. Character still matters. Timing still matters. But fear no longer gets the deciding vote because it speaks first. Picture yourself waking tomorrow with one important decision still in front of you. Your mind is quieter. You do not need endless confirmation. You know what information matters, what boundary matters, and what the next honest step is. You are not fearless. You are present. You are not certain about every outcome. You are clear about the next responsibility. And that kind of clarity can change the direction of an entire season without requiring a dramatic sign. If the resource I described earlier stirred something in you, the official page is still available in the description and pinned comment. You can examine it there. Nothing in your calling depends on that choice. Now, return to the deeper truth. The final breakthrough is not that fear disappears. It is that fear stops being confused with prophecy. You have already survived the season that taught you how to notice what is false. Do not use that wisdom to become suspicious of everything new. Use it to examine what is new without abandoning yourself. One decision, one boundary, one conversation, one next step. That may be all this moment asks of you. Not a complete map, not a guarantee, just enough honesty to stop using preparation as a hiding place. The Designed Detour taught you what the old road could not. The receiver gap showed you why knowing can fail to become movement. The threshold fear shows you why movement can feel dangerous, even when the evidence in front of you is sound. Now there is only one question left. When you can see the pattern, support the receiver, and recognize the fear, who will you choose to be at the door? You do not need your old season to return in order to feel safe. You do not need another closed door to prove the lesson. Chosen one, the journey has already given you enough evidence to move differently. Look back once more. The Designed Detour taught you that a difficult road does not automatically mean a wasted road. The receiver gap showed you that insight needs a clear condition if it is going to become action. The threshold fear showed you that discomfort can appear even when a new direction is healthy. Now bring all three together. Your past does not need to control the next decision. Your mental state deserves support. Your fear deserves examination, not obedience. Choose one decision that has been waiting for you. Do not choose 10, choose one. Picture it in front of you like a doorway. You do not need to know what exists 5 years beyond it. You only need to see the next honest step that belongs to you. Now, change the question. Do not ask whether you feel afraid. Ask what is true when fear is not speaking the loudest. Let your shoulders drop. Unclench your jaw. Feel your feet against the floor. Take one slow breath and let your body learn that clarity does not require panic. This is the exact point where preparation becomes participation. The journey may have taught you to wait. This moment may be teaching you to respond, not recklessly, not desperately, with discernment, capacity, and a mind willing to remain present. Perhaps that is what this exact moment means. Not that every detail of your future has been revealed. Not that a reward is guaranteed. It means you can meet what is here as someone different from the person who began the journey. You can see clearly now. You can choose carefully now. You can leave what is finished without needing to hate it. You can honor what formed you without building a home inside the formation season. And if you pray, let this be your prayer. God, give me wisdom for what is mine to carry. Give me courage to release what has already completed its work. Help me recognize truth without letting fear imitate your voice. Help me protect my attention. Help me choose from clarity instead of pressure. And when the next honest step becomes visible, give me the courage to take it without demanding the entire road first. Chosen one, receive this declaration. I do not need my old season to return in order to feel safe. I honor what formed me. I receive clarity for what is here, and I will meet this moment as the person I have become. If that is your decision today, write, I am ready to meet the moment. Let it be more than a comment. Let it mark the line between the season that formed you and the life asking you to use what you learned. If these messages help you recognize what God may be forming in your life, stay connected for more. There is more to understand. For today, one clear step is enough. The door does not need a perfect version of you. It needs the present version of you, awake, discerning, and willing to move.